acknowledgement. We must acknowledge with respect as non-native people that the land on which we stand, live, and learn is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. We also recognize the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that make up the state of Colorado. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Anything anyone would like to amend? Okay. Sorry.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Yeah. Let's take a reflective moment of silence. Thank you. Now is the time for audience business. I don't see anyone in the room. No. Is there anyone online who would like to address the board? Okay. Then let's move right into staff reports. Boulder County Sheriff's report was in the packet, but Sergeant Sears is absent.
Yep, Sergeant Sears, apologize for being absent 2 meetings in a row, but it just was the way his time off worked out this time. He did include 2 reports in your packet. One being the flock camera counts of individual vehicles. So basically for the last 30-day period, we've had almost 150,000 separate vehicles come in and out of town. I think this is really a interesting number that we should challenge ourselves and maybe set a metric for how many of those stop with our Economic Vitality Commission, even if it's a 1% or a 5%. But I think it's really interesting how we watch this number increase over the summer months. He also did include the calls for service this month, most of which were responding to people who had called in a concern that they wanted the sheriff to check. And then following that, welfare checks and medical calls and animal complaints are all about the same. So that was our June calls for service. Other than that, they're very minor, 1 or 2 responses to other types of events in town. So also wanted to let you know that as of today, Sheriff Johnson said he submitted the paperwork to the state to lift the tubing ban. So I would expect by this weekend, hopefully, tubing will be open on the creek. We know that's comes with its share of also medical calls and emergency calls. So, but we do expect it to officially open this weekend. That's what I have for him.
Any questions?
I have some questions, but I might wait till
He's here.
no, I was just gonna say, I think I'll just wait till my trustee report, so.
Right.
Okay. And then administrators report. Do you have something exciting to announce?
I do have something exciting to announce. I don't know if the rest of the board was aware, but Mayor Rogan had submitted a nomination for me to the Colorado Municipal League for the Good Governance Award for this year. And I was selected amongst the nominees across the state. And I brought it to share with all of you. I told them that's the fanciest thing we have in our town hall. So I want to thank the mayor and all of you for your support and making this happen. It's very humbling and gratifying to have your career acknowledged and, you know, the work you put in public service. So thank you all.
And I'd like to add some narrative to that, if I might.
Okay.
So Administrator Simonson's husband and daughter joined us at the awards ceremony, which was, oh gosh, I don't know, 500-600 people.
I think it was 800.
800 people at a luncheon that the governor also attended part of. And so there were 14 nominees this year. Victoria was voted on unanimously to win by the CML Executive Board.
Oh, wow, that's good.
It was a unanimous decision. So they were thrilled to recognize her, and it was really thrilling to see up there getting the award from Sam himself.
Sam, I'm Googling Sam right now. I didn't know who he was.
Sure.
So do you know a little bit? Who
Sure,
is
Sam Hammett was the executive director of CML. Gosh, I don't know how long, almost 40 years.
40
maybe?
years.
Very
And
long
then
time.
prior to him, how many?
Yeah.
How many?
Like
Brandon?
20 years, I think.
And then there's only been 2 executive directors of CML since it started 100 years ago. So he is just known throughout the state as, the go-to person for all things municipal. He's just a great resource for managers and attorneys and boards and commissions and councils. And he is the primary person who coordinates the lobbying efforts for the state in regard to
Yeah,
municipalities.
Yeah, now it's
So,
Kevin Palmer,
But he's recently retired. So when he retired, they started this award to acknowledge people who continue demonstrating the traits of good governance that he exemplified all the time, constantly.
and Sam still does trainings to boards and city councils on good governance. That's something that a lot of people do as part of their work, their retreats, is have Sam do a training on that. So it's a really well-known and respected figure in Colorado across the board, but certainly in municipal affairs.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was really great to see Administrator Simonson recognized by all of her peers.
Well, and it's nice to have a small town recognized when, there's so many municipalities across the state of such varying sizes and complexities. So, yeah, it was nice. I got a personal card from Sam
You did.
since then, yeah.
Well, that's nice.
So I did, that was the announcement. Oh. Thank you. In regard to updates for the town the last couple of weeks, hopefully you are starting to see some improvements to streets throughout the different neighborhoods. Right now, we're supposed to start Welch Drive, Welch Court, and McConnell near the high school, but with the wet weather, we don't want to do that and compromise moisture between the 2 surfaces. So I'd rather wait a day or 2 and have it dry than put it down and regret it. So this schedule that was in my report will be pushed back a little bit. If you haven't been up Steamboat Road, Horizon, but Vasquez area, beautiful. It is.
They are beautiful, but I have to say the first comment I got was, why did you pick this over
Yes.
that street?
Yes,
So I gave them the whole spiel.
good. Good. And, we do decide that by metrics
That's right.
of a formal pavement study, the age, condition of the road, and what needs to be repaired underneath it. And we spread our budget as far as we can every year to preserve roads from needing a full replacement. So we do have a system in mind here, and we will eventually get to everyone. Unfortunately, for 10 years, we focused on flood areas, and now we need to catch up. So I think as we have our budget discussion this year, both Cassie and I are interested in having a discussion about, is it time to put in some form of a street fee or improvement to be able to do more than what we can do right now? Or are people willing to be patient enough while we apply for some of these really large federal grants to take care of the infrastructure and the roads? So we're going to have some good discussions on this. The housing needs assessment, we had our kickoff meeting with Bohan Houston, and they are progressing now on our housing needs. We have a nice steering committee made up of representatives from the Housing Commission, the Planning Commission, staff, and then our consultants that will be spearheading that. They will be putting up a full interactive site on our website, or separate, both linked, so that people can start brainstorming where are appropriate places within our community for maybe more dense housing. Give us some more input on growth areas that we might be interested in regard to housing needs. But this project will be taking up significant planning staff time over the next few months. The goats are done up on Long's Peak. They left with full tummies for sure with all that vegetation. But the owners of the goat mowers were really happy with our timing this year and continue to encourage us to use them on the most rocky areas. That's where they're the most effective for us. The only other thing that I really wanted to bring up was it's so nice to see that we had a young person at our last couple of meetings about a midday bus stop. And by goodness, a couple of weeks later, Boulder County had submitted that and approved it as an expansion to our service. So starting at least for the summer months, July and August, we will have a midday round trip to Boulder to Lyons. So I hope that Mr. Emerson is able to use that. That would be great. And then also we are getting the word out there about our curbside limb pickup that is scheduled for July 17th and 18th. Specifics are on the website on that one. And that's all I was going to report on verbally. The rest of the report is in the packet.
Any questions for Administrator Simonson?
Yeah, I have a question. I was under the impression, and maybe I just had read it wrong, that asphalt paving in Stone Canyon was going to include Stone Canyon Drive from the light to the dirt road. Is that accurate?
The first section. Let me see, is it on?
That wasn't your understanding? Okay, then I may have gotten it wrong, and it was
Yeah, I have
just.
it just the milling on Eagle Canyon Circle, Eagle Drive, Eagle Nest Lane,
The Peregrine, okay.
Peregrine and Osprey.
Yeah, so that's kind of the enter. I just for some reason thought that the
Rest of it.
main
I can make a note.
road was going, but
find
if
out
you
steps.
didn't pick up on that. Okay,
I was a little surprised with that one stop, but yeah,
yeah,
that wasn't really addressed.
right, that's what I thought too.
I can
So,
sure follow up with our engineer and find out why or why not, or if they still plan to.
okay,
It could be that this piece, the piece they did was all the milling, and they might be doing some other overlay work as they do overlay in the rest of town.
okay,
There's three different functions going
Sure.
on there, so I'll find out.
okay, that'd be great. And then I was just wondering, and I will bring this up now. With the water levels being significantly down, how are things progressing with Planet Bluegrass being able to put in the pedestrian bridges?
I had reached out to Zach last week and told him that I would be looking at those today or tomorrow,
Okay.
and he'll probably have them by the end of the week.
Great, okay. Thanks.
Other question. Can I ask about the status of the Ewald hole?
Sure. We went out for a short-term bid for that project. And the lowest bid came in at $41,000, which was not budgeted and is a pretty significant amount for us. So we have decided to reach out to some of the local contractors that are already in town. And we now have one who thinks they can do that for more like 15,000. So we'll be bringing forward a contract with you. We were debating if our staff could do it themselves, but we're wanting to install a French drain system in there as well as just paving it. It ended up being a sinkhole less than a foot deep, and it is pure bedrock. So that's the good news. So we will be able to put in this drainage system to bring it off of the hill and then down over Laverne Johnson Park Hill, and just fill in that area. So
Okay.
I would think it will be simultaneous with these projects
Mhm.
while we have asphalt in town.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it will be another week or two, at least. This is going out through, 7-11, so.
Okay. How is it impacting the resident? I haven't been up there to see it. Is it
There's
impacting
only,
the residents?
there's really only one neighbor, and she's been in to talk that, it's inconveniencing where she has normally parked for many years.
Mhm.
But we told her our plan and she understands, you know, are going to be able to park exactly right in front of your house for a few weeks.
And I also want to mention before I forget, there's a press release in the packet, and I think, does it contain the link? It doesn't. So there's a link to a video, and maybe Clerk Vasquez can send it out to the board. CML came and did a video for Victoria's Award. So they interviewed me and Mayor Pro Tem and Trustee Dottie happened to be around Town Hall too, and Administrator Simonson. And they put the extended version up on their website. So if you have an extra 5.5 minutes and want to hear nice things about Administrator Simonson, watch that. Okay. So ordinances and public hearings. We tonight have 2 second readings and public hearings. The first is ordinance 1148. An ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, amending chapter 11, article 4, section 20 of the Lyons Municipal Code concerning the hours of operation for town parks. Staff report, please.
Yes. Brandon, I didn't know if you wanted to do this one. Dolores, Dave said to text him when we got to benefits.
I can do it if you want, Victoria. I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. It's up to you.
No, go ahead. You're ready.
Okay. So this is an ordinance that I put together at the direction of Director Cosgrove concerning the hours of parks. Essentially, what the issue was we were discovering is that you know, the code as it currently exists did not recognize the seasonality and the difference of time essentially that would be, you know, you'll experience in winter versus summer in terms of daylight hours. It was only, I think it was originally 9 to 5 or 9 to 8. I can't remember exactly the days. So what we did is we put together, you know, an ordinance changing that to make it dawn to dusk with some exceptions. You know, the big one being that the town administrator or their designee, which would probably be the director of parks, could put publicly posted changes if there was a special event, for example, that needed to be changed. If you're camping, if you're trying to get from one place to the next and pass through a town park. So those were the exceptions, and it really was driven by concerns over illicit activity in town parks, and also the fact that, you know, during some parts of the year, like right now, so it's, you know, light out till 8:30. Other times of the year, you know, it's dark at 5. And so that was what I was directed to put together. And I worked with Director Cosgrove and Mr. Simonson on some of the language on that.
I can offer a little more follow-up.
Mhm.
So I know at our last meeting, there was some discussion about, you know, where Ken's teams go after dark and things like that. And the mayor did ask me to check into what are the hours of city parks in Longmont and the area. So I did do some work and found out that the city of Longmont has their parks divided into neighborhood and community parks, nature areas, greenways, and dog parks, and then special parks such as Button Rock and areas like that. So they have different hours for different areas, but in general, they do allow from 1 hour before sunrise until 1 hour after sunset in general. But they have full-time police department to monitor that. The city of Boulder is similar. They are 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. except for the summer, they're closing at 9 p.m. due to excessive vandalism. And then county parks and open space are sunrise to sunset with fines issued if you're even parked there. So those were some of our neighboring communities. I could not find, Ned only has one park and they don't have hours. So that's what I found just for some of our neighbors, but it does appear that those that have full-time presence of law enforcement are open a little later than the rest of the areas that just have pass-through law enforcement.
And just to clarify too, what the existing times are, it is 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. I checked it in the code, so that's much later than even our neighboring larger jurisdictions.
Okay, questions for staff?
I have a question.
Yes.
So would it be possible to have like maybe different hours for Sandstone Park? And the others close, that way people could gather there and it's,
More visible.
yeah.
Sure, whatever the board would like to do is possible. It's again, enforcement is hard for us because there's not someone here at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. to say, time to go home. You know, it'd be complaint driven. No, all of our rules are just a little more difficult to implement because there's not someone like at Sandstone at that hour.
There's questions. Yeah. Anyone?
No, that's okay.
Okay, so I had a couple, and I wanted to get clarification because as I was thinking about this, where it does say town administrator, that you can determine, otherwise. So for example, special events, because we do have parades in the winter. And it doesn't mention anything about parking in parks. So I was curious because Christmas parades, you know, we have now a designated Second Avenue parking lot. So I'm curious about those. Do we need to make a distinction at all when we're considering something along those lines? And as a community, I think, you know, if we get a lot of tourists in the summer, and they're bar hopping, they might want to be at Sands, they might want to be parked over at Second Avenue Park, and is that going to be a problem or something like that? So those are just with the hotel potential. I was just curious, does that fit into this at all or not at all?
Attorney Dittman, do you think parking should?
So I think there's two issues here. One, parking during special events. I think that was certainly covered by any variance language. So for example, if we wanted to open up parking in Bone Park for the Christmas parade, you know, the town administrator could, you know, post publicly, probably online, saying that all parks will be open for parking for the purposes of the annual Christmas or Halloween parade. So I think that covers that piece of it. The second piece of it, specifically concerning Second Avenue parking, is that in a town park? Because this is only applicable to town parks. So this would not be applicable to that in particular. If there's another parking area, which we want to use in parks, outside of dusk to dawn, we may want to add an exception to that, maybe a D, saying that parking designated for parking outside of, you know, park hours, that may be a way to cover those. But I'm not sure whether there's parking in town parks that we want to make available outside of a special event when we publicly post that's open.
Okay,
So Second Avenue would not be part of this.
right, but what
Bone
about
Park side would be.
Black Bear Hole, which is pretty close to, say, the Diner Bar and Mojo's and the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could walk then to Oscar Blues.
Sure.
I could just see somebody like, well, I'll park here and then go all the way around. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be a little hypothetical, but just to raise the question. I don't know that it's necessary, but I thought I would ask.
Sure. Well, and you know, there's nothing saying this is a second reading and public hearing. So if you want to, we can table this for one more meeting and draft a little more language if needed to add to it to clarify too.
I don't know.
Oh, sorry. I think it's a policy decision for the board, right? Whether we want to keep that parking open or not. And I can't tell you whether we should or not.
I think Second Avenue is very logical. It's very well lit. The recycling and the wastewater plant have a separate, you know, fence. So no one's going in there messing around. It's very visible. Black Bear Hole is a little different, but it is adjacent to the commercial district as well. Up to you guys.
But if there's an event or something, you obviously have the ability to.
A special event permit should acknowledge that we're using it. And so when we approve a special event permit, it would say that they're lining up at blank park or they're ending at this park or whatever.
Okay, I mean, I honestly think maybe I am thinking of a problem that we don't really have. So, but it's worth considering. Okay. Those were my questions.
Other questions? Okay, then I will open the public hearing.
Big
There
crowd
are-
tonight.
Yeah, is there anybody online who wishes to speak? Okay. I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 1148, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, amending chapter 11, article 4, section 20 of the Lyons Municipal Code concerning the hours of operation for town clerk.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second, and I would like to start by offering an amendment. So the troubling times are in the summertime in the parks. That's when it's dangerous. In the winter, the parks aren't as busy, but there are some folks who like to go play hockey at night. I'm thinking of our beloved chiropractor and his buddies. And so I kind of feel like they should be able to do that. You know, we shouldn't, it doesn't seem like a problem and they can do it. So my amendment would be to amend, what section is this? 11420B3 to amend it to simply say when authorized by the town administrator or their designee, period. And so in that case, if somebody wants to do, you know, a yearly go, hey, we want to be able to do pickup hockey games for the winter. Is that okay? If the town administrator gives their permission, then that's okay.
So I think that's 11-420A1, I think is the correct section if I'm looking at it right.
I'm looking at 11420B3. No person shall remain in the town within the town, any town park when the parks are not open except, and then 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, 3 is engage in maintenance activity as directed by the town, but I think what you're reading is that any variance in the hours of town parks, but about publicly posted. So it'd be 2, I think. I think you're looking at 2, when authorized by the town administrator or their designee by permit or publicly posted variance. And so you want to get rid of by permit and publicly posted variance, right? Yeah.
We're wondering why the code is different that we're looking at.
Yeah, so I'm looking at on our packet.
Yeah, let me pull that one up. So
I'm looking at
looking at-
page 18 of our packet.
okay, I'm looking at my Word document where it came from. Because I'm trying to
Okay,
rewrite. Let
so
me take a
this
look.
is 11420 park hours, section B, number 3. So section B is no person shall remain within any town park when the parks are not open except.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Got it.
And so then changing number 3 to when authorized by the town administrator or their designee, period.
Okay. Yep. Okay. We can do that.
Okay, great. So that's my proposed amendment. Does it get a second?
Yeah, a second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I think this would also pertain to like, when we do the lights out
Yeah.
at Bone Park or
Yeah.
the shows with the telescopes. They already do get permit. I mean, they call it, yeah.
Yeah.
It will allow a little flexibility for special.
Sounds good to me too. Okay, we'll call for the vote on the amendment.
And that motion passes unanimously.
In fact, I'm sure Joe Merkel thanks us. And then anybody else have any other amendments, any discussion?
We gonna do the one about the 9 o'clock?
No, but you can.
Yeah, okay. So I was thinking that, what if we do and separate this out where it is summertime, dusk to dawn? So from like May 15th to September 15th. And then for the rest of the year, it can be dawn to 9 p.m. So that when the kids are back in school, it's not our busy season. It's pretty quiet in our community. Then the kids have the ability to be out and about till 9 in parks if they want.
Yeah, so I like the thinking of that line. I was going to talk to the student advisory committee. They're out for the summer during the parks. But I did talk to a bunch of other kids and I asked them what they thought. And unanimously across the board, it's like, well, if the park's closed, we're going to go hide behind the Mormon church, or we're going to hide in the back of the football field of the high school, or there's all these places along the river where they hide. No one's going to go home and tuck themselves into bed. So we're just kind of like hiding the kids. And so I'm not that excited about it. I understand. I mean, the sheriff had a very overwhelming presentation. I respect that. I understand what Boulder does and Longmont does, but I think we need to keep in mind both of them have rec centers and they have programs like Longmont has the kids' night out where they keep the rec center open until 10 o'clock. Kids can all go there. Of course, it's well organized. It's got all these advantages that we don't have as far as people watching over it. But as far as vagrancy, I just don't think we're doing anything other than moving the problem. If they're not going to vandalize the park, they're going to vandalize the church. They're going to vandalize something else.
I think you're assuming the problem is the local kids, and I don't think that's true.
I think that's the issue is if you do this, it doesn't keep
Yeah, no.
other communities from being in our parks till that time as well.
Yeah, and but do we know the problem is not from locals and it's from people out of town?
Well, the sheriff tracks, they track different types of graffiti. Some of it they can tell are younger people, more, probably late elementary, early or middle school. Other types is traced back to different types of gang, related in bigger communities. So there's a little of both.
So we
But I
think
just want, to be aware that if you do this, it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that if they have a nice May, that people are in the parks late, stay till later too.
Yeah, so I guess we're making the assumption that if we close the parks, then people will leave town. And
they won't,
Yeah,
some
I don't
people will
know.
stay here.
And maybe,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, maybe we think about it from the sheriff's perspective, at least the way I think he's probably thinking about it is a lot easier to enforce if there's a clear cutoff, right? If there's people in the parks after that period, then they're in violation, can identify the bad actors easier. Just a thought about what he's probably thinking.
yeah, I understand. And now, do we have a curfew? Like, so if the
There's
kids,
a curfew in our code.
so junior high school kids, if we tell them, oh, you got to leave the park, and they just start walking the streets.
Yep. If they see
They
kids
still have a
walking the
curfew.
street, they have a curfew. I think it's 11.
Yeah, I'm checking
I'll
on
have to-
right now.
So one of you look it up quick. I think on the weeknights it might even be 10 and the weekends it's 11. It's not very late.
It's
Well-
11.
And 12?
But it's certainly later than we are closing the parks currently.
Oh, yes.
So what policy do we have to keep them off the school grounds or off the river? Or,
Just that policy.
just the curfew policy?
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's 11 Sunday through Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday it's midnight.
What about the concept of sandstone?
Well, that's why I like that. And that's why my recommendation, or where my thoughts are, is to have, at least can we carve out some place that they can be in a safe place? Because we don't have a rec center. Now I do know we did at one point keep the elementary school gym open at nights for kids to play. But,
School didn't want to.
yeah, I think we should think about where can they be safe and play instead of just turning it off, because they're not gonna go home. They all told me that.
Yeah,
So-
I think there's two things here. One is really a discussion about our park hours. The second is a whole separate issue of we need more activities for our teens. And, you know, and are we trying to solve that with our park hours when we know that could pertain to the general public? Versus do we need to really spend a little time, quality time, figuring out somewhere for them to go?
So I never actually made a formal amendment, but perhaps you can make one. Or you, related to sandstone.
And I see Dave Cosgrove's here now, I know.
What are thoughts?
Well, I think what you do is actually you make the amendment and then we talk about it and vote. I actually never did and I should have.
So you did not make the motion to amend hours from May through September, from dusk to dawn and the rest of the year to 9 p.m.?
I actually never did officially make that.
Never did. Yeah.
Okay, so, would someone like to make an amendment?
Do I amend to leave Sandstone Park open later?
Yes,
till
specifically
midnight?
What times?
All
Yeah,
year.
what times?
for the year and what times?
I would say, I don't know, I guess I would say all year till maybe 11, Sunday through Thursday and then midnight, Friday, Saturday.
Exactly. I guess somebody has to say a second.
Yeah. Is there a second to that amendment?
I'll second it, so we can discuss.
Thank you.
So we can discuss it.
Yeah. I'm curious to know, so Director Cosgrove joined us, so before we discuss it, let's see if he has any input into this. Director Cosgrove? If you're talking, you're muted. Okay, well, let's have discussion and then if he has something to say, maybe he can hop in.
I personally like where you're going. I would make it really simple though, and just say Sandstone Park can stay open and cap it at 10 or 11 o'clock year round.
I think what he's trying to coincide with is the curfew.
Right,
So
match
that
the curfew
if you
then.
can be out till 11, Sunday through Thursday, and midnight Friday and Saturday, if there's nowhere else to be, they can sit at the tables there.
So the curfew is that,
It is in the code already.
okay, then my mistake, I thought it was every day, 7 days a week, it could be 11. I miss it.
No, it's, the weekend nights is 12.
Okay.
Is there plenty of lighting in Sandstone?
If they don't like it, they might take it out.
It's not very bright.
It, like the stage is not, I mean, and now it's got kind of walls on 3 sides. I would hope that if we saw any kind of vandalism, you know, after we change this road, we'd address it after all that.
Yes.
Right away.
Because it is difficult to clean raw sandstone compared to
Yes.
concrete.
Yes.
I was kind of thinking like if you go to Mexico, they have the central
Yeah.
squares where they're well lit and everybody is in there and they're there till midnight.
Yeah.
And it's a nice social place.
I agree. I love that about Mexico.
I do
Is how
too.
everyone's at the scare and they sell the corn and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of wondering, can we go back to the Parks Department and ask for maybe more input, more thought, more brainstorming on, can there be a safe place for kids to be after dark? Because we don't have a rec center. And unless we keep the gyms open, they have nowhere to go and they will just walk the streets.
So, are you, are you suggesting that we table this for now until we do that? And have Parks and Rec Commission investigate this? Or should we, we're still considering trustee Dahlman's amendment. So, do we move forward with voting on the amendment and voting on the ordinance itself and direct staff in the Parks and Rec Commission to investigate while we see whether, if it passes, whether Sandstone works out for the teenagers?
Or maybe an internal place. I mean, they really need an internal place to go.
I
During
actually have
summer.
another thought. Is the exterior of the library lit?
So, I mean, there's street lights there, and I think they do have a light in their parking lot as well.
Because that technically is available space
Commercial or a community center.
that people can sit outside in that area. So perhaps that's more of a way that we can communicate to our teens, like, hey, that is a place that you can go and it's lit. It's right next to the sheriff's station. And so that we could maybe give them something as a place that is a safe place that they can go and sit and talk if they want to.
Well,
It is lit.
We have to obviously talk to the library.
I don't know. Well, I did actually.
Oh,
And yeah,
what did they say?
she was like, yes, it is a public place. It's not a park.
Okay, so
So I was
Okay.
gonna say,
Trustee
I feel like it's a tiered approach. So I feel like we need to set the times for the parks and then figure out what the other pieces are. Like, we know we need a spot for the kids, but we need to start somewhere.
yeah,
So, and maybe it's not, maybe it's library, maybe it's Sandstone Park, maybe it's somewhere else, but something like tonight, my daughter's at the church, the river.
Yeah.
Because they had programs there on Wednesday nights.
Mhm.
So maybe it's something like that, where it's not just the town, it's other groups. Maybe there's different spots they can go to different nights.
Yeah.
So,
And
just
especially
set something.
weekends.
And all we're doing is we're setting the times. And then it's up to essentially us and the sheriff, the enforcement. So we're saying, here's the rules. You can have whatever rules you want.
and the
But it's up
parents.
to the important, yeah, right. It's up to the enforcement of the rules.
Okay, so,
Okay.
so right now we're voting on trustee Dahlman's amendment to exclude Sandstone Park. I'm gonna, having seen the graffiti in Sandstone Park in the mornings, I'm gonna be voting no on this. I think that just for clarity's sake and to help preserve our parks, that I think all the parks should have the same hours. So just to let you know that, but I am 100% for finding places for the kids to go. Any further discussion on the
It needs a
amendment?
second.
Yeah.
Dave did text me that he's having trouble unmuting and I don't know how to get him.
Oh,
to
okay.
unmute. I don't know if it's because he called in, I'm not sure. But he's on there, he's just having trouble.
Maybe
I think
you
it's
can
like
call.
*7 or #7, I think, on Zoom to unmute. I can look it up, but I know it's a
Or
something.
perhaps
7.
he,
Just unmuted.
oh, yeah, he's unmuted.
Oh, there we
Yay.
go.
Okay, Director Cosgrove?
Well, let's start.
Maybe Director Cosgrove can call somebody's cell phone and you can put them on speaker.
You have, I think this is a great project for Park and Rec Commission and the Student Advisory Council together.
Yep.
To do and to come up with some good recreational alternatives. I found it interesting while we're waiting that I was at a history presentation recently. And over the years, we have had several different teen hangout businesses. And, I look at somewhere like Moxie right now, that's empty. Or Paul Tamburello, who's saying his corner is going to be empty and available, it'd be great if someone would start a drop-in center that would have later hours, evening hours. For kids, so. It was interesting, back in the 70s and 80s, Lions always had one.
Interesting. So it looks like Director Cosgrove dropped off the Zoom.
Told him to call me and I put him on speakerphone, maybe that's what he's gonna do.
Okay. We'll give him a minute. I'd like to hear from him before we vote on the amendment. Do you think he gave up?
Not sure.
I think it's okay.
Okay. Any further discussion before we vote on the trustee Dahlman's amendment?
I'm just gonna say, I actually have had a change of heart because I really did like what trustee Elson said, that we make this a separate issue. And so let's keep all the parks. I'm gonna say no, just keep all the parks the same. And then we address this differently with Parks and Rec and Student Commission and come up with a better solution for kids.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, I'll call for a vote on the amendment.
And that motion fails 5-1.
Don't feel bad.
Yeah,
No,
it's a good
I'm
discussion.
good with everybody's.
Okay.
That was the last time, so.
Any further discussion on ordinance 1148? Okay, let's vote on the ordinance as amended.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you, everyone. Really good discussion on this. Okay. And there's, sorry, guys.
Just texted.
Okay, next we have second reading and public hearing on ordinance 1149, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, annexing certain real property owned by the town of Lyons, 109 County Road 69. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Rogan, Lieutenant Farrow, members of the board. So that we don't have much of any change from what was presented at the first hearing, and same as with the PCDC. One thing I did want to bring up, and I didn't see as far as the public hearing goes, last week's PCDC meeting with the rezoning, even though that's next on the agenda, the adjacent neighbor to the south, Mr. Darcy, did join in on the conversation. And it was really good to have him participate. I spoke with him once before as well. And his concern, which was brought up before about tourists and using the social trail cutting onto his property, he was just worried that with the annexation, if the town will take responsibility and try to deter away people from doing that still. And I did want to make that clear that when the parks and staff, Parks and Planning, do present a plan for the trails, we are going to try to alter the route a little bit, to take it away maybe from their property and possibly plant some trees or create a barrier so the resident next door doesn't run into the same issue he does have. Regarding, that's the only real update that I had from last week. Everything else does remain the same as far as still wanting to have the zone as parks and open space. Permanent structures are limited to benches and trash cans and a possible gazebo. Again, those would be presented at the time of when we present a plan for the trail system itself on the property. And as far as that goes, staff does find that the review criteria was met, and I'm open to any questions.
Any questions for Planner Painter?
I have a question. So I was curious, I was thinking about this from the property standpoint, that at some point there was a driveway onto the Martin parcel prior to the flood. And I'm not sure that I don't see that necessarily with the what you have here is the annexation grid and stuff. So I was kind of curious how, if we have any sense of that from the past that we can use as our follow. And then, you know, there are the trees that you did mention last time, and you do see them on the map. Did you say that Boulder County has to approve to remove those trees?
It's in the Boulder County's right of way.
Okay,
County Road 69 is theirs. And so They would have to approve the removal of that brush. In regard to the previous driveway, we can actually pull up Google Earth from previous years to see it. But that whole property, the river shifted
Right.
significantly there, and that's why it's no longer available.
What's no longer
The
available?
driveway.
The driveway is no longer
Maybe
available.
the river.
I do think there may have also been a time period after the flood that they shared the DRC driveway
Mhm.
until it became a buyout.
Okay, okay. I was kind of curious about that too. So, so assuming all things pass here very quickly, how do you go about, what is your plan to go about so that we can, as soon as possible, help to make sure people are not going onto the Darcy property there and that we can maybe start that shift as best as possible? How does that work?
We would jump on that as soon as possible.
Yeah.
As soon as the annexation is passed, hoping it gets passed along with the rezoning, that would be staff's next step is to also work with Parks and Rec or with Dave Cosgrove and the planner Kim in, come up with a good solid plan and get the ball rolling on that.
Okay, okay. In that
And
case,
And funding, funding will, yes.
right.
Realistically, be looking into probably next year's budget.
Okay. And then I was also wondering, is there any water with that land?
Boulder County kept it when they transferred the buyout.
Go figure.
They also kept the mineral rights on the property.
Same pattern.
And then on, there was a something from Boulder County, I think it was page 100. They talked about a turnaround. What is that? What does that mean? That they get to have a turnaround versus,
And where exactly is it on the property of that?
right, it really kind of wasn't clear, so I just wanted
David
to,
is pulling it up there.
page 100, I think.
So, right there on County 69, and that's as well, that portion is on my border, that's where they want to hold onto that turnaround portion.
So that cars are not pulling into private driveways to turn around.
Oh,
They want a little
We cul-de-sac.
needle eye. You know,
So by the trees that are right there,
have to come down to do that as well.
and that would be something Boulder County would do?
Who mentioned the turnaround?
Yeah, if I may speak, Mayor Rivers.
Please.
I'm not aware about the turnaround. Is there?
it's
there
Yeah.
exhibit
about
1, it's A1
Okay,
on page 55 of the whole packet. Which is how I get myself organized. But it is based on the special warranty deed.
And it's also in Boulder County's referral response. It is number 4, which says, please note there is an easement on the property which reserved an area for Boulder County to use as a turnaround for the special warranty deed.
okay, that's interesting. All right. I have been in contact with Boulder County Public Works as well as Boulder County Community Planning and Permitting regarding potentially annexing this portion of County Road 69. That's adjacent to the southwestern corner of the Martin parcel. And so it is possible that something like that could be accommodated there. I think we should find out more about that. You know, the goal of annexing this portion would be to allow for, as Mayor Pro Tem Farrell mentioned, and Planner Painter mentioned, moving the social trail to access the County Road 69 right of way. That would be the ideal goal, as well as a formal entry into the Martin parcel for full-size vehicles, because there's not a way right now for that.
The rescue vehicles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, but it would not be for any vehicle, it's a rescue vehicle.
Yeah, or maintenance, or town maintenance.
Sure.
We would do bollards or rocks or something to only bicycle, well, probably it'd have to be removable, I guess.
Or like a gate like there
Yes.
is.
Can you show the Google Earth map from prior to the flood,
Sure.
please? So it would actually benefit us if they would come in and do that turn, or, if we said we're ready for that now,
Mhm.
then we'd get our access onto that property. So it does appear they always shared that portion of the DRC driveway.
That's what I was curious about.
They did, and they had an easement with the Darcy's that expired with the sale of the land, essentially.
How close the river was. In this scenario, we would not have been able to access off of Road 69.
Right. Okay, so I guess then, this isn't necessarily anything that would pertain to an amendment to this annexation in this discussion, but, I guess I want to just publicly say that we are intending that we will go with Boulder County to clarify what this, what was it called?
Turnaround.
Turnaround and creating the trail access so that it is not on the Darcy's property or anybody else's for that matter. So I just wanted to put that out there publicly.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so, and since it's in the floodway, it cannot have a fence. Is that correct?
Okay. So planner painter, were the DRCs, were they satisfied?
Very satisfied.
Okay, great. Other questions? Okay, I will open the public hearing then. Don't see anybody in the room. Is there anyone online who would like to speak during the public hearing tonight?
You might say, please unmute.
Yeah, you can unmute yourself or turn on your camera or. Okay, then I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move to approve, ordinance 1149, ordinance of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, annexing certain real property owned by the Town of Lyons of 109 County Road 69.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote.
And that motion passes unanimously.
All right, congratulations. Congratulations, planner painter, on your first annexation. Next, we have a first reading.
Oh, I'm sorry, Doug Darcy is here and he would like to speak.
Oh. Attorney Dittman, we already voted. Can Mr. Darcy please speak? What do you
I
think?
mean, it's not gonna change the vote, but he can speak if you'd like to recognize him.
Yeah, I would like to hear from Mr. Darcy. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me at all?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't have my microphone on. I was speaking at the last meeting of who was it, Brandon? What was that meeting?
The planning commission meeting?
Yeah, the planning commission meeting. And they were under the assumption that we were using the plan from the Dr. Bopp plan, that we all agreed that there wouldn't be a path from the Martin property to County Road 69. That was in the original Dr. Bopp plan, and they were going to plant trees across there so that there wouldn't be people coming from the park going down County Road 69. And now I'm hearing the polar opposite from the Board of Trustees.
That is correct.
The way public comment works is that we don't respond to public comment.
Oh, okay.
And so it's
Mr.
just for
Darcy?
input.
Yeah, thank you, Attorney Dittman. So, Mr. Darcy, if maybe you and staff should follow up with each other after this
Yep.
meeting and iron out any confusion.
Okay.
I think that would be helpful.
Well,
Thank you very much.
my comment would just be that we spent several years coming to an agreement with the Dr. Bopp plan, and the Dr. Bopp plan, if you look at it, ends that trail and does not go on to County Road 69. And that's what we agreed to, and through many meetings and many discussions and 3 different mayors now. And I'm just seeing the opposite from the Board of Trustees as far as making a trail that goes to County Road 69. So
Okay.
that's my
Thank you.
comment.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for commenting. We'll make sure that staff follows up on this just as soon as they can, likely tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now moving on to first reading of ordinance 1150, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, zoning property at 109 County Road 69, Lyons, Colorado. Staff report, please.
Yeah, so ordinance 1150 for the rezoning of 109 County Road. This is current, property is currently zoned for residential, and that obviously cannot be used to that purpose anymore due to the flood being a deed restricted buyout. Staff is proposing that we change the zoning district to parks and open space due to the what was previously discussed in the annexation, that it would be used as a social trail, and we figured that would make the most sense, and the intended use of this from the special deed as well as for it to be parks and open space. And again, it's in alignment with the comprehensive plan as far as bio properties go, up to page 24, future land use plan encouraging more parks and open space, especially in the town of Lyons. And lastly, we feel it would be in the best interest to keep an urban forest within the town as well. And to go off of Mayor Pro Tem's comment at the last Board of Trustees meeting, we would not be cutting down any trees unless it was maybe fire mitigation wise, due to the fact that Parks and Open Space does heavily enforce the fact of protecting trees, environmental resources, so that would not be an issue as well. And I see you have questions.
Any questions?
So I guess technically this could be the area that we could consider the Dr. Bob intent for this piece of property. As it does mention in here, the town of Lyons would like to rezone. The town bought the proposed property from Boulder County in 2016. The property became a Dr. Bob deed restricted buyout property due to the 2013 flood. So isn't there the Dr. Bob plan on properties? And that's the map of the circular is not actually in here. And perhaps that could be included for discussion for second reading.
Was it? Oh, okay.
I think how Dr. Bott plays in is the zoning that's being proposed, is it consistent with the Dr. Bott plan? That's how that's the question the board has to answer.
So
Parks
if
and open space consistent
with the plans. Okay, so that doesn't have to do with a trail being a circular trail
No.
versus an exit.
It's the use of the property. Is the use consistent?
Yeah.
Okay,
design.
And then we'll be reviewing design.
gotcha.
Other questions? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Okay, I move to approve ordinance 1150, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado to rezone 109 County Road 69 to the Parks and Open Space zoning district.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn as the Board of Trustees and to assemble as the Lyons Liquor Licensing Authority?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I'll call for the vote.
And that motion passes unanimously.
All right, Lyons Liquor Licensing Authority. Do we have a staff report?
I can get that, and my apologies. I'm working with my deputy clerk on, she's getting trained on liquor licensing, so I had her write up the report. And failed to mention who the license was getting transferred from. So, that is going to be transferred from the Stone Cup. Their license is still in good standing until September of 2023. So, we're well within the time frame to get this done. So that temporary permit that was issued to, Antonio, and Vada, that's good for 120 days. That allows them to start ordering liquor, get all their other stuff in place so that way they're ready to roll. It can be extended one time for 120 days because the state, it's hard to know when those licenses will come in, but that temporary permit has been issued. So he's ready to go on that end. And then this transfer will be from Mindy and the Stone Cup over to Antonio.
Great. Any questions? So will Antonio need to apply for a new liquor license then in September?
No, once this transfer is approved, the state will give him like a new time clock, if you will. So
Okay.
once they reissue it and take it out of Stone Cup's name, it goes into his name. And then if it's August 13th, then it's good for a year from that date.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if she pointed out in there, the patio situation, because Moxie's in the other part of the building. So Moxie, I think, will be closing at 3. His restaurant will open at 3. He is licensing the entire premise of the patio because they're going to kind of share it. And I said, that's the best bet. Someone walks out there with a glass of wine or something. You want to make sure you'll have the entire premise licensed. But that's kind of their intent, is to share the area. Moxie will have it in the day. As soon as they close, he will take over.
But Moxie does not have a liquor license.
No, Moxie had one at their old location, and I reached out with them and touched base on transferring that. And he said at that time it was not a priority for them. So.
Okay.
So Moxie will not be serving liquor on the porch, though their customers might be sharing it, but Farah will be responsible for the alcohol use on the porch.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so the motion, there's a recommended motion in the packet that's a little different than the other motions in that you would have to read the whole thing. That's in bold, in caps. So I would entertain if anybody wanted to make a motion.
I move to approve the application for Alliance LLC to be named Farah for transfer of ownership of a hotel and restaurant liquor license based on the plan set forth in the staff report. The July 5th, 2023 meeting based on the following additional findings. The applicant is exhibiting a character and not exhibiting as a licensee, but the premises are suitable based on the review of the plan submitted. And the petition submitted by applicant along with testimony received in the public hearing indicate that existing elements are inadequate to serve the first needs of the neighborhood, and that there is a need and desire for to keep a hotel and restaurant license establishment as measured by the reasonable requirements of the neighborhood. For the move to direct town staff to notify the state of Colorado Liquor Enforcement Division.
Thank you. Before I ask for a second, Attorney Dittman, I failed to open the public hearing. Does this get a public hearing? The motion.
Dolores' transfers get public hearings. They don't unless
They don't, okay.
They don't
unless they're objected to, I believe, right?
Any negative back
Okay.
after we
Right.
posted and we didn't.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay, I
only if
just
there's an
noticed that
objection. So.
Right. I noticed that phrase in the motion, so I just wanted to make sure. Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Oh,
And that motion passes.
congratulations to Antonio. Okay, Clerk Vasquez, will you please read the?
We have touch sheets.
Says liquor license.
Yeah, we have-
Thank you, everybody. Is there a motion to adjourn as the liquor licensing authority and convene as the Board of Trustees?
So moved.
Second. Okay,
That motion passes.
thank you. I made a note to myself before this meeting to do that. Okay, would you please read the consent agenda into the record?
Consent agenda item 1 is resolution 2023-44. Resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, authorizing town staff to apply for a United States Department of Transportation Safe Streets and Roads for All. Item 2 is resolution 2023-45. Resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, approving a professional services agreement with Opinion Environmental Incorporated for the creation of a grant-funded historic context report for the town of Lyons. Item 3 are the June 20th, 2023 Board of Trustees meeting minutes, and item 4 are the July accounts payable.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there anything anyone would like to pull tonight from consent?
Number one, please.
Number 1. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll vote on consent as amended.
That motion passes unanimously.
Sorry about that. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, I had a couple questions. Do we need to wait for Kemet?
Well, at least Tracy.
Okay. Hi. About the CDOT Safe Streets Roads grant. I kind of wanted to get a little bit more information. Would this address, and I'm gonna need some help, Administrator Simonson, will this address what was at one point considered a part of the Pell, where we wanted to reclassify the highway?
No, the Pell agreement is already an IGA between us and the county and the other municipalities, so that's already accepted. This grant is, was drafted between, the two of these staff. Can you kind of tell the scope of what they'll be looking at?
Yeah, so it's a comprehensive transportation safety action plan for the towns, anything within the town boundaries. So that could include the areas under the Pell. So essentially, it could offer ideas in that same area
Yes.
as to how to enhance safety. But it's comprehensive to the whole town. So there could be a tangential relationship between this SS4A and the portion of the town that is under the Pell.
But it won't supersede the Pell.
It will not. supersede
Oh,
the
no,
Pell.
I didn't
No,
mean
but
it
it will
that
be
way.
able, anywhere within our town limits, it will be able to suggest safety improvements.
Right, but I think at one point, and this was quite a number of years ago, under that agreement, the town was gonna have to do some sort of speed
So,
study within that particular area, between McConnell and Highway 6636 intersection. I was curious if this might pull that along.
It potentially could. I mean, the money will be used to hire a consultant to create a comprehensive safety action plan. And one of the pieces of that puzzle could be speed. Because we're really hoping that the plan will hone in on ways to make bicycling safer and pedestrianism safer. But as well as driving, because it's not safe for drivers. I mean, drivers have to contend with dangerous portions of the lines as well. And so that's why it is comprehensive. It's all forms of transportation. So yeah, that could be a part of it.
So I guess,
I could add to that.
Yeah, I think
I
Tracy had
was just
something.
gonna add, the benefit to doing this will allow us to go for other funding to implement some of these safety requirements or suggestions from the consultant. So that was the whole purpose of doing it, is just, but yeah, it's safe streets for all. I think it is very roadway focused, so I think they will want to look at a road safety. But then a part of that too is your pedestrian and cyclists and the other types of safety as well. But it will help us go for more money later for other projects. Yeah.
In regard to the speed study, I think I know what you're referring to.
I was wondering if we should dust that off once the consultant's hired.
So I think what you're referring to is when we put in the McConnell Stone Canyon street light, they had said that they would not entertain a speed adjustment for at least 9 months following that. We don't have to wait for something like this to request one.
Right.
At any time, we can request a speed study from CDOT per section. But what they'll tell you is that beware because it's based on the speed cars are going. And so you might end up with a faster speed limit than a lower one. So, but in regard to, could this help us? Absolutely. I think that this would be a great argument to take back to CDOT to say we would like a speed study. And here's the recommendation from a transportation professional.
Sure. It goes a little further though than that, is that I remember it was in order to reclassify what it's currently named, because we talked about changing that classification to reduce the speed. And CDOT said, we're not going to give you a time frame in order to do that. And you could do it when you're going to change the development.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we could dust that off a little bit so that when the consultant's hired, because if it can add to that, I mean, we had that as a goal.
We just last week met with our new CDOT representative, resident engineer, and we talked about the PEL and the need to educate the board more about that. They are on board and said they have approved a reclassification when the time has come.
Reclassification. Okay. So I didn't
But
know
it
if
was for the east corridor. I don't
Yeah.
remember it for this stretch. Like,
from McConnell to 3666 or it was
Yeah.
east of that.
I think it was east of that.
Oh, I thought it was to get traffic to slow down to the light.
So
Anyway, something to keep in mind. This triggered that for me.
okay.
The other question I had was, where do you hope the 150,000 match will come from?
Oh, not 150,000 match.
Did I read it
So,
wrong?
Yeah, so the grant ask is 150,000. The match is at 20%, so that's $30,000.
I misunderstood that when I read.
Yeah, thank goodness it's not 150.
Okay,
And it can be in kind or in cash or a combo.
so, okay, then I misunderstood. I thought it was 30,000 could be in kind, but we had to come up with the rest to get to the 150 for something bigger.
Yeah.
So I read it wrong. Good to know. And then that is all my questions. So thank you.
Anyone else have questions?
All right.
I'm glad you pulled us to have the
Yeah.
discussion.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
that was
So
informative.
I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution authorizing town staff to apply for a United States Department of Transportation Safe Streets and Roads for all planning grants to be used to obtain professional consulting and establishing a transportation safety baseline and creating a comprehensive transportation safety action plan for the betterment of the future of the town of Lyons.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? No? Okay. I'll for vote.
And that motion passes unanimously.
You. All right, so boards and commissions, we have the Tiara Resources update. We don't have, excuse me, any commission members here. Does staff want to take this?
No, it was, at one of your previous meetings, you had asked for an update. And we thought we had slated it for this meeting and it did not work for the professional, for the consultant during the holiday week. So they just asked that we include this, so you have an update.
Okay, well, and I appreciate that. Personally, I would like to be walked through this.
Okay.
Because there are charts that I just don't understand.
Sure. I
So,
think it was just timing with workshops and
sure.
IGs and finance, so it may go out until August.
That's fine. I don't feel like it's urgent, but I
Okay.
just want to, I feel like it's important information. I want to make sure that
Okay.
we understand it and that the public understands
I
it.
think
So,
they just want to be responsive.
yeah, no, and I very much appreciate that.
Sure.
And I feel like this is the same thing I brought up last time, where it's another presentation from Tierra that can be taken away from what they're doing. Where, because they gave it to UAB, the EAB, if they just gave it once and we had all the commissions
Yeah.
here. That's all.
Mhm,
That's all.
mhm. Let's see if we can make that happen, even if that has to push it out a little
No, I
bit.
agree.
Totally fine. Okay, thank you. All right, so general business. We have an update on the St. Vrain Corridor Trail funding and next steps. Good evening.
Okay, so a lot of good news with the Saving Trail extension. Last time I think we checked in, we had a funding shortfall of over 600,000, about 622,000 shortfall. And we worked very closely with Boulder County, and they will be giving us 600,000 in funding for this project. So later this year, they'll submit an IGA for that funding so that we can continue moving forward with design and construction on this project.
Nice work.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, so other items to consider, so design, we were at 30% design. We kind of were holding off on moving forward any further because we didn't know if we had funding and we had the alignment conflict. So now, and I'll get to that in a minute, but we feel like we have that resolved as well. So now we'll send over our 30% designs over to the ditch companies for their review. We're crossing 3 ditches and we're putting in box culverts into the ditches, so they're gonna have to approve that design. So that's kind of next steps, and we're working on our environmental assessment. And the things to consider there, we have a Pebbles, the meadow jumping mouse habitat around that area. We have wetlands that we know we're gonna impact. So you have to mitigate, and we have a couple options there. And then the ditches and the railroad right of way are considered historic, so they have to do an assessment of that. And so there's potential mitigation that will add a cost to the project if they find that we need to do any mitigation. So Dr. Cog, we were supposed to advertise this project originally in October of last year, and we missed that. So our second advertisement deadline was July of this year, and we're not going to meet it. So I have submitted an extension request asking if we can advertise a year from now. Because of the timing of the environmental assessment, like you have to go to like CPW and all the, SHPO for all the state historic office for reviews. And that can take up to 6 to 9 months. So during that time, we can be doing design as well. But we also need to do construction during the winter because you can't be putting in box culverts during the high flow of the ditches. So really, it kind of makes sense just to give us a year to get through design and then start construction winter of 2024 and then finish up in spring of 2025. Because then we'll have to do plantings. I know we're going to have to probably do wetlands and we have to do that in the spring. If things align and we get them quicker, we'll try and do it a lot quicker, but there's just considerations to think of there. So the board, Dr. Cog board meets at the end of this month. And so we'll know if we get our extension from them. So that's our next big hurdle.
Yeah, on the 17th.
Okay, yes, okay. And I feel pretty positive that we will get the extension, but I don't know. I haven't, this is my first time working with Dr. Cog on stuff like that. And then the alignment. So it looks like potentially new property owners will be taking over the parks property, which means that lease will have a choice on that lease, whether we want to not do a lease at all with the new property owners or work with them to do a new lease. So that gives us some room to negotiate potentially utilizing the back half of the town's property for the trail alignment. So that's kind of all of it in a nutshell. Yes.
Can I ask for clarification? Because you do have in here, the alignment that is going between the Clark's building and their shed. And then the one underneath in the map, it shows the alignment that goes through the back of Spirit Hounds and basically what would be the shed. Why did you include both of those versus just one at this point?
The other map shows the building cut in half. And so, yeah, and so both of these are actually showing the same thing. We would be on the very
Staying
back
on the town right of way.
town right of way. So we will be cutting through Spirit Hound's existing patio area, but just continuing straight. And then we would stay on our property, which if that storage building remains, it will have to be cut in half.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess the sketch, it looks like that building stays full, which I think we were trying to move away from and staying cutting the building in half and staying in the back.
Yeah, that's what we'll do.
That's great. Okay.
Yeah, the other, yeah, this was just a rough sketch from the original alignment, so I
Right.
drew that highlight on there, but then that's why I included the actual design, what it would look like through design. That's why I included the other piece of those clearer.
I think because there's still unknowns, we were just showing that we intend to move forward on our own property.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And, yeah, just, and we'll still have to work with the ditch company because Highland, they turn around on our property and stuff, so there's gonna be some things to sort out there. And security issues are gonna.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, is that any other questions? Well, thank you for the update. Appreciate it and nice work in partnership. This is really great news.
Taking a village as usual.
It's taking a village. We're gonna do it though.
Yeah.
Build the trail.
Yeah.
You can take the inaugural ride in the golf cart.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Next item of general business is discussion direction on grant opportunities. I really love seeing this spreadsheet. I've asked Administrator Simonson to include it in every finance report so that we can see where we are. I think this is a great picture to have. So would you like to?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, this spreadsheet that, actually, Finance Director, Istone put this together and then I just added a couple little things to it. But she started this tracking sheet, so it is really great to have. So the color coding I put in green, what we've awarded. What's in yellow are grants that we have applied for and we're waiting to see if we'll be awarded. And then there's 2 grants on here that we haven't applied for yet. So one of them you heard about tonight was the Safe Streets for All. And then the other one, there's there should be 3 in here. Is there one missing? Oh, no, sorry about that. And then another one that we plan on, we would like to apply for is revitalizing Main Street funds. The Broadway project that's funded through CDOT and Dr. Cog, we were supposed to have lighting put in, and it just put us way over our budget we had available. So we did a little research and we could probably put in some, solar lighting along there for about, a fraction of what it was gonna cost with that project. And so we feel like we could get funding for that through the revitalizing Main Street grant. And then one that I'm not sure, that's new that we just applied for is with CWCB, which is the Colorado Water Conservation Board. It's the one on the very bottom. That stream bank that's over by the Summit Housing Development area, it's just like a 20-foot almost sheer drop from the flood. It just never was repaired. We decided to go ahead and apply for some funding for design. And then, because a lot of these funding sources, they want a shovel-ready project, meaning have your design ready to go. So, and we do believe we've been working closely with the Left Hand. They have such a long name.
Savory Left-Hand Water Conservancy.
Yeah, so we feel like we could work with them for our match on this. So there's a good chance, and there's a few other opportunities for the match on this. So, but yeah, as you can see, we have a total, we're getting a total of $2.2 million worth of design, infrastructure and studies, with our match being, about 270,000. So
In kind and cash.
yeah, in kind of, yeah, so a combination. So it's a pretty good return for us, what we get in return for that.
And this is the calendar year 2023.
Some of these will go into 2024, like the FEMA HMGP ones that we applied for. We will not know if we get awarded any of those until probably January of 24.
Okay.
So that gives you time, gives us time to look at our budgets and stuff too, but it's unlikely we'll get all 3 of those, but you never know. But the CWCB, I think we'll know this year. So they all just vary in their timing.
We could maybe change the title to just grant status and tracking and put a date on it, if that's a little more clear.
Yeah, I'm just, yeah,
Anticipate award date or something.
Well, no, just on the title, 'cause it says 23.
Oh, okay.
So maybe we just say grant status and tracking and then put a date somewhere on it that it's revised.
Okay.
So one thing I don't see on here is the congressionally directed spending. Is that not considered a grant? I mean, it's a little different, right?
It's a little different, but I think we should add it.
Okay.
I think we should add it. I think it's important too. I think this is a really nice snapshot. You know, it not only, you know, tells you what staff is working on all the time and on the sites, but what wouldn't be done if we were relying on our own budget.
yeah.
I know that we are always wanting to become less grant dependent. This is still part of that big cycle of COVID, ARPA, Build Back Better, and it's gonna go away. So,
Yeah.
you know, but I do think it's good for the trustees and the public to see, you know, what would not be happening if we were relying totally on our own budget.
Yeah.
I
There'd
think
be
that
very
would be
little happening.
really, really good, because this is very interesting. I don't think a lot of people in town
Well,
realize we're getting so much from grants.
if you ever saw our original project management grant, how many pages was that? It was like 106 different grants at once we managed over the last 10 years. And it was huge. It was it was a lot.
Yeah.
Overwhelming to look at. But I think I really like the color coding here. We'll change the orange to yellow here as soon as that grant goes in next week for Safe Streets.
Great.
And
Questions? I think I sent you an email, but I'm just gonna mention it. I would love to see for when we're doing our budgets, where will we be taking the matching dollars from to offset, and so that we can make sure that we know that.
and that should just be on here. We should add it.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I wanted to know, I'm pretty positive, but at some point we talked about that there was, through the Marshall fires, Boulder County had some kind of grant for underground electric wires, but this, in here it's FEMA.
Yeah,
Is
it's actually.
that the same?
Yes, it's the same thing. It's through FEMA. It's hazard mitigation.
Okay,
That's the HMGP, Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. So yes, it's the Marshall Fire money that those three grants went into. And they get first priority. Superior and Louisville get first priority on that. And then they said if we don't get awarded any of these, they will roll them into the BRIC, BRIC, which is under that more federal IIJA. Sorry, I'm throwing out a lot of.
no, it's
acronyms.
okay.
That it'll roll into that program, which is a national, so it's much more competitive. And then our match will change to 25%.
Okay,
So I did not know they were gonna do that. They just informed me of that last week. But yes, this is those three FEMA ones is the Marshall Fire.
gotcha. I wasn't
Interesting.
sure. Okay,
Yeah.
well, we're good. I'm glad that we've applied to all three and keep our fingers crossed.
Any other questions?
Just a comment on the wildfire mitigation part. FEMA is our largest financial supporter at 10X Mile High. And we had a speaker 9 days ago from CSU. They are now modeling very accurately, community by community, both flood possibility and wildfire possibility. It's Hussam Mahmoud is the one who's leading the team. They're up in the 85% able to predict with very specific kinds of mitigation. So like, if, they could, like in our neighborhood, they could decide your house should be mitigated, but not mine, based on their modeling. And it is really fascinating stuff, and they're making very good progress with it. Which means that wildfire mitigation within the next few years is going to get cheaper because these models are working. I mean, it's where I started modeling floods, and then FEMA comes along and says, could you model fires too? And they're like, well, water and fire are two very different things. But they've done it, and they've been really successful with it. So that talk will come out in a couple of months. I'll let you know. it'll be worth watching.
Mhm.
It was really fun working on the script on it, just to see how strong the numbers are, and how much it will save. But,
Thank you. Mayor, if I can
for sharing
piggyback on that.
Yes.
I think one of the lessons we've learned with this really wet spring as well is that we need to do more education on our stormwater inundation map.
Yes.
I think people were surprised. They were planning for the river to overflow, and then we had some neighborhoods that really had inundation. Where the staff knew, and know how to manipulate that stormwater map. But we need to do some more education on how to get that out to the general public, because you could still get insurance for that type of inundation as well as riverine flooding.
Yeah.
So, it's another area that I think is educating to on that.
They also talk about, and this I don't know much about, except I was emceeing it, so I had memorized this portion of it, that they are initiating a new art walk program with municipalities where they will share costs in creating art installations that also double as social gathering places. So as we're talking about places for the kids to gather, like one of the things they're working on that we had to pull from the script because they said we haven't approved it yet, is skate parks that would also be places where floodwaters would tend to flow. And as long as there's an instructive and an interactive element to it, they will become very involved in the funding of that, particularly in places that have had a lot of floods before. So they have a special deal on that in Taxi Pavilion in Rhino on the, well, actually that one's Thursday. That one's Thursday of this week, where they're going to be showing the very first one they've done in Denver, which is an interactive sculpture on how floodwaters function.
That's really, thanks for bringing that up. That's interesting. It would be great to get in on something creative like that for a town. That would be very cool.
You know, it's early. I talked to the FEMA guy there who runs that whole side of things. He's all in promotions and PR, so he's like, I just give you what they tell me.
Yeah,
I
you
don't
can't
really
get
know
anything
anything
out of
about
PR
it.
people. Okay, so are you looking for direction on anything in particular?
No,
On the
this was
grants?
really just, we wanted to make sure that the mechanisms we've been using for applying for grants is working for you.
Mhm.
You know, where if it's a small grant, I've been putting in my administrator's report and saying if there's any, objection to this, let us know, or if there's not a financial match. And then bringing the larger ones to you, such as the one tonight, and showing you how we're tracking that. And so what we have out there.
Mhm.
And to thank Tracy for continuing to work with us
Thank you,
on
Tracy.
grants. We're finding more and more grants are allowing a small percentage to go toward grant management. And so we're able to keep Tracy on here despite her budgeted amount kind of coming to an end. But if there's enough of these that continue into 2024, I'm hoping we'll continue to see her position funded at a very part-time level so that we can keep applying for these.
Yeah, while we do flood closeout.
Do you have any idea, per capita, are we receiving more in grants than another typical town?
I would think so, but
Yeah,
I
I
don't
would
know
think so
how to
too.
even.
Get that data? Yeah,
Wow, I would have to think about where to get that.
yeah. I'm
Just out of curiosity,
Sorry.
are we still in the neighborhood of 1% on clawbacks?
Yes, I think, yeah, so that's speaking of, possibly extending my position. I don't feel like the FEMA closeouts are gonna be done for another year. We're way backed up, but yeah, or FEMA's way backed up, but, Department of Homeland Security, I meet with them consistently and, just from the other municipalities, it's been a 1%, less than a 1. So there's a closeout where you get your final payment closeout, so then there's a portion that might not be obligated, and that's been less than 20%. Or I'm sorry, less than 1%. Then you can have an audit from Office Inspector General, which could happen years down the road, and that's where your clawback can come from. But when your closeouts are looking at less than 1% of de-obligate, where you're not getting what all your expenses paid, your higher clawbacks can be out. So it's looking very positive, yes. So.
That's great.
mhm.
The other data that I would love to see is, when we talk about matches that are in kind or financial, if we know the percentage that we estimate a particular grant to be of both, that would be interesting to know too.
We always do. We don't recommend accepting a grant list till we know those numbers, so. Yeah, we
Okay.
can do that.
Okay. Great, thank you. Okay, discussion direction on the Boulder County IGA is discussed in executive session.
Move forward.
Yep. Okay. All right, trustee reports. Trustee Williams, would you like to begin?
Yeah, we, have the 25,000, assuming that all of the people signing the dotted line by the deadlines that were given. And we approve that in the consent agenda. Opinion is, and it's all listed, there's really helping us with that. And that's about it from there, and I have nothing else.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Dunn.
So for the Parks and Rec, they have not met since our last meeting. But I do want to say that yesterday I was at Boone Park and there were some very angry people, and the park hosts, John and Diane, did a wonderful job of getting everything taken care of, and people were much happier.
Good. Was it super crowded there yesterday?
It was, and there was an unattended 6-year-old who went into the river and someone pulled him out, and parent was very upset that someone was telling their child what to do and was gonna get. So they were excellent, John and Diane.
That's great to know. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes. Okay, so we talked about through your trustees reports, a few things. It was really interesting. Somebody brought this up to me over the weekend, and it triggered a memory that somebody had said this to me like a year prior, that there are tourists that come to our community and get in our river, and you go and you get down in the last kind of November hole, I think is what they call it. People get there and don't realize that that's where you need to stop. Otherwise, you're going to go over the spillover, which is quite dangerous and sort of death. People have asked, well, doesn't it loop back? Like they literally think that it's a lazy river in our town. I know this because I had somebody ask me this, and then a friend said, oh, somebody asked me, like, they think it goes back up to town somehow.
They're gonna wind up in Nebraska.
So it got me to thinking about that huge spillover dam, and a boat almost went over it over the weekend. Anyway, and when I've done stand-up paddleboard out on Lake McIntosh, and they put out these big, massive buoys so that you don't get into the
Natural habitat.
thank
area.
you, yes. And I'm wondering, is there any way, and I don't know if this is our job, if it's, the spillways people's job, but to put some kind of a buoy, where you've got it like 20 feet before the spillover, that's like danger, you will die, and they float in the water. You know what I'm talking about?
We have, when FEMA reviewed the Highland ditches plans for that area, they were required to put signage on both banks, and there is signage there.
But
To
you
me,
almost
it
have
is-
to get to there to
It's
see it.
it's so wide right there if you're not looking at the bank, which you're probably not. They are not very visible, I don't think. We did talk about other mechanisms, including like a grab wire with a sign in case
Yeah.
someone were to get that far. And it was decided that that was more dangerous and you might decapitate or injure someone if they didn't see it. So buoys might be an option, but again, the river is owned by the people. The land under it has some ownership. I have never been satisfied with it either. So I like the idea of buoys. Where was that at that I could maybe look?
So if you're on Lake McIntosh or actually out on Union Reservoir,
Okay.
they'll have buoys that
Okay.
are for the sailboats.
Yep.
To
Oh,
kind
anyway,
of do
yeah.
their route, right?
You know where, okay.
So you kind of know, and it can say,
We could talk with Attorney Dittman about who's,
I don't know, yeah, who's
Right, that is to
responsible, but.
but I do want you to know, we have a map.
Mhm.
We do have signs exit here, but we do try to educate as much as we can, but unfortunately, people aren't always interested in that. They just want to get in the water.
Right, and not realize.
Does Raise tell people
Oh,
about
yeah.
it?
Raise it.
Yeah, that's part of their contract.
Yeah, but not everybody uses Ray.
But
Right.
not everybody listens.
So the people who use Ray are have to sign that they understand and they know where to get out and all of that, but.
You can just show up with the town, your own inner tube and think you're gonna float out of one area and that somehow you're gonna make it back. Just
Are we, I know Highland owns
Think here
this.
that Laverne Johnson is like that. I always describe it as a horseshoe,
right.
not a circle. a
Entrance
horseshoe.
and exit.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
know
there was
that-
that.
I know that Highland owns the diversion structure, but the adjoining land on either side, do we own the adjoining land on either side of that area?
We do.
So we could put something up in the land.
You could put a anchor, a buoy potentially, or put across something.
Yeah. Okay, so there was that. The other thing is, I think I read on social media that somebody was using a spear gun of some sort and got fish out of the pond.
That's correct. There were people spearfishing in the ponds and we immediately called non-emergency dispatch. They did respond.
Uh-huh.
Our sign says no fishing. It shows a hook with a fish, so I guess maybe someone wanted to take that a little further, but they were contacted.
They got talk to those people.
But yeah, again, it's a one-time, people
Well, it brought
do
up,
all sorts of things.
it brought up another experience. I was floating down the river and there's this little bobber in the water and the kid's like, can you get my bobber? I get the bobber and there's a hook and, there's the sign. Well, the fishing sign was so far. Oh, because I yelled to the guys, I was throwing it to him. I was like, it's, you're not supposed to use bait. That's exactly what he was doing. And he was like, well, there's no sign. I was like, yeah, there is. But I got out and walked around. I mean, the sign is almost covered by a tree now or a branch or something. And so anyway, I was just thinking that maybe if we could have consideration that maybe we need to have sign somewhere else also on the other side of the river. I don't know, but
It will,
people are just gonna ignore it.
yeah, I mean, you will always, we can put up as many signs as we want, but it's just going to pollute your stream banks and it's very clear it's catch and release. Again, I hate to regulate when there's one person making bad decisions. We are meeting the needs of posting our park regulations at the entrances to all the parks and, that sort of a thing. So, unless we can always try to better them. But I don't think it's the norm. I think it's the exception.
Okay.
I saw some people fishing in there, maybe 2 weeks ago, told them you can't fish. They went and looked at the sign, kept fishing.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So,
we'll get code enforcement.
Yeah, I will bring it up to Director Cosgrove though and make sure that each of the separate areas has it instead of just.
I just think we should have a sign that says no spearfishing for carp.
I mean, it's just, just be specific.
Just- Wait, what? Yeah.
And I mean
We
you.
call it, it's spearfishing.
Yeah, because then people will know that someone spearfished there. It won't sign unless someone actually did.
What are you
Good
gonna do
point.
with a carp? I mean, it's just.
I guess in some areas that they eat.
I've been known to. You make the filter fish out of
Well,
it, yeah.
It actually used to be a very common edible fish that people would eat, like back before Depression era.
You know, and technically, it's kind of time for the bigger ones to go and bring in some smaller ones. So
So who
maybe
has
we should have a spearfishing day.
Fishing tournament. for
Yeah,
the kids.
we'll see. No,
It's
that's,
we'll see what-
Yeah, they're great.
See if the EAB supports that.
yeah.
Okay, that was all I had. PCDC, I don't really have an update because it was zoning and annexation and stuff.
Okay, great, thank you very much. Trustee Eddie?
So the last UEB meeting, I dictated most of the meeting talking about water rights. I had a whole series of questions for them. It was really good. Not that they had immediate answers to everything. They would like to be more informed about water rights as well. As a matter of fact, we left it as a homework assignment that a lot of them are going to go out. As a commission, they were going to read, they were going to read the right water. What do you
Engineering
call it?
study.
The engineering study, to educate themselves. A couple direct questions, though. I did ask about their thoughts on should we repurchase Max shares? And they were on the fence. They didn't feel it really needed to be done, but they did feel if it is done, they would rather them be purchased out of the general fund held for affordable housing as opposed to being out of the enterprise fund. Because they felt it was really pretty much just a financial
Economic
development thing, and that it's actually not appropriate to happen out of the enterprise fund.
Interesting.
I don't know if I care, I mean, fine either way, but I was surprised that they didn't feel it was that important. What they did want to know, if we did purchase more shares, what type of housing study or what type of growth or what type of expected annexation would we see to justify the purchase of those shares? They were a little bit hesitant to just say buy them because you don't know what's going to happen. But then, of course, everybody brought up what just happened. The Lee Williams stuff, right? So anyway, so I still think we should continue to discuss water shares and have a joint workshop with them. The last question, I really wanted to get a good idea from them, and they wanted now to have a better idea as well. We have the ability for obviously affordable housing and economic development to make a decision to allow them to buy Max shares. And I asked them, and why would we ever say no? Do we have a good idea? Is there a certain percentage of our portfolio should be CBT as opposed to MAC? If the hotel comes in and has to buy 100 Max shares, that would obviously alter our portfolio. Is that good or bad? They were very curious about, they didn't know answer. They didn't have any immediate answers to that, but wanted to understand it better. And then the last thing is, and this came up, and it was Chairman Kerr that had been thinking this for quite some time. Are we over dedicated to Longmont? And he has kind of thought we have been, quote unquote, Longmont's keeping us fat. And so, and Right Water suggested the same thing, but maybe it's the appropriate thing. I don't know. But at some point we should develop some better expertise on our end to understand, you know, are we over dedicated? Or is it healthy? Are we doing the right thing? I really don't know. Anyway, so that's my report.
I think you're referring to the VBA study. Right Water is the engineers that looked at our wastewater plant. It's Bishop, it's VBA.
Oh, okay. Then I might have.
They're the ones who did the study on our water rights in our portfolio.
Okay, then that's
So
what I meant.
I just
I'm
want
sorry,
to
I
clarify
misspoke
that
then.
for, no, just for
Yeah.
the record.
Yeah.
I think it's that one. We are supposed to have a joint planning commission board of trustees twice a year. I had suggested to the planners that we might hold that in October to do our comp plan review. And then maybe we could do those two topics or something.
This is the UED though. not
Oh,
PCDC.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is UED. And lastly, they're dying to know about Honeywell.
You-
That's about pretty much what I said. I'm not gonna make a mistake, so I'm just gonna stay silent.
I think with our financial update, coming up at the end of the month, if there is any kind of deposits into that
That's-
account, that will show.
That was the end of the
And
joke.
they're-
They're just gonna look for deposits
Yeah.
and say, well, this is what happened. So
Okay. All right.
that's it. That's all I
Thank
got.
you. Trustee Elson.
SFC is not meeting till the 18th, so no update there. The EAB vets, same that we met last time, they approved the rights of nature resolution, they're gonna be bringing that to us. What's they talked about the arboretum update for the trees, the walk of the trees, about updating that, and updating the map, there's some trees died, or something like that's the replacement. And there was a discussion about prairie dogs, which is actually kind of funny because there was a prairie dog in my yard, in my window well. I had to get out over the weekend. So I don't know if it has anything to do with, because we're behind Bone Park.
They heard you.
They're sending scouts.
Yeah.
We've never seen any animals in my yard. There's a prairie dog in a window well digging. I had to cut a piece of lattice, put it in there and eventually climbed out. So. we
That was
saved-
nice of you.
we saved-
That was very nice of you to
Yes,
make the
some
ladder.
people- Some friends of my daughters wanted to shoot him, so.
I'm sure.
Let's just put him out of his misery. No, we figured it out.
Yeah.
So. And I had a question on, so I know we have through code enforcement, we're not the code enforcement officer anymore. We got the ability to give essentially tickets for things. So what happens with that? Does anything happen like with parking? We have all these new places where people can pay to park, but who actually looks to see if they're actually paying to park and does anything or
Yep.
does anything happen?
So we have a gap right now in our code compliance. It is a position that's advertised. And so we have a gap right now that unless there's something that I want to ask the sheriff, to follow up on, he will do that for me too. But on the weekends, we have Denver Metro Security that can keep an eye on parking and make contact with people. They do not issue tickets.
But I guess, is it a problem? Are we seeing revenue from the new sites we put up for the meters, I guess?
I haven't gotten our first financial update on that yet, but hopefully our next meeting.
Yeah.
And we know that the season is just way below because it's so
Weather.
weather driven.
Yeah.
But I'll ask Director Eystone to look specifically at
I
parking.
was just curious.
Yeah. No, it's a good
And
question.
I think it's a good question. I think we all agree that the code enforcement position has been pretty urgent to fill. Okay, thank you. And I know that UEB and SFC are going on a joint tour of National Renewable Energy Labs. So I'm hoping they contacted you to post that as a public meeting. So I hope they have a great time. It's a cool place if anybody, and I think pretty much anybody can tour the facilities. You just have to ask. It's pretty neat. Okay, so CML was terrific. And it was, again, a pleasure to see Administrator Simonson get her award. It is July and August are zero fare for better air, which means that all RTD buses and trains are free for everybody. So that means we can now go from Lions to DIA for free for 2 months or wherever. So and that comes out of Dr. Cog. That's a project of Dr. Cog. So let people know to encourage them to take the bus. And lastly, bears. So it's so great that we have all the bear cans. The bears, particularly on the north side of town, have been extremely active. Killed some chickens. Our bear-proof can, which is the screw top, has some brand new bite holes in it. So what that tells me is it's a new bear because the other bear knew that they couldn't get into our trash bin and quit trying. So just, reminder to folks to make sure that your trash is secured.
We were told there was a new bear this weekend in town, much larger man.
New bear in town with no ear tags yet.
Yeah.
So let's make sure he doesn't get any. ear
So
tags.
then our bear-proof bins are only as effective as they are used properly. So
Yes.
you can't leave the clasp open and they're going to work.
Yeah, so maybe we could do some more reminders to people because nobody wants to lose their chickens or their dogs or cats or, and bird feeders too. Bird feeders are a huge attraction. LEHC meets on Tuesday next week, so I'll be attending that, and that concludes my report. Is there a legal update, Attorney Dittman?
The only legal update is that we are inching closer to finalizing the Honeywell settlement. So hopefully the next one of these I report, I can say it's all 100% done. So
Great, thank you. Can we get a summary of action items, please?
Yes, item one, I have the board would like a Boulder County IGA special executive session that would be longer, potentially on the 5th Monday. I am to send the CML link, video link out to the Board of Trustees. Ordinance 1148 passed on second reading. Ordinance 1149 also passed on second reading. Staff is to work with Mr. Darcy on the Dr. Bott plan for the Martin parcel. Ordinance 1150 passed to second reading. A potential PEL and speed study in the future. Next, the mayor would like to schedule in-person Tierra resource update for a future meeting. And next I have that we would like to see the congressional spending grants and where match funds or in-kind are coming from into the grant tracking spreadsheet. The next item is you would like to see education to the public on stormwater inundation areas. Next, staff is to research potential buoys on the river before spillway. Next, a potential workshop with the UEB on water shares in the water portfolio. Next, the board would like a parking revenue update on the new parking areas in town. And the last thing I have is to send a Barraware update out to the public.
Thank you.
Did I miss anything?
I just had a couple more data driven things that I'm going to try to find. Is Boulder County growing at the same rate as the rest of Colorado? And I had one other one on there. Oh, are we going to be paving Stone Canyon Road at the beginning? And some changes to the grant tracking. Actually, I thought of two more grants too. That we probably should add to that just to track the opioid settlement money. Might be one we want to add to that. And then that most recent one with Boulder County on their urban forestry, that they're paying our grant match too, so we can participate in trying to reduce the temperature in urban areas by planting trees. It's their grant, but that's great. So there's a couple more there, and probably the brownfields. So there's several different ones out there, and that's all.
Okay. Attorney
Oh,
Dittman?
and
Sorry.
just do kind of an inventory on our no fishing signs prevalent in different areas around town.
And one other thing, I think we did talk about having the parks and different groups talk about activity for kids.
Yeah.
Yes,
Now
They
that we've
have
done
that
that.
as a
PRC and student advisory.
Yep.
Thank you. Attorney Dittman?
the only other thing I thought of when Victoria's going through the list of the grants is that we need to probably talk in the next board meeting about the PFAS settlements that are ongoing, the forever chemicals. There's some decisions to be made there about how the town wants to proceed on that. As there is a pretty big bucket of money potentially available for upgrades of the, and remediation from past damages for forever chemicals.
So you can throw the stadium down there as well. Right?
In our stadium money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
stadium
the
needs-
Okay. All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Okay, 1 to 5, how did tonight go?
Good night.